Hello, everybody, and welcome to the BUSR Formula One Championship, round 2. And today we're heading to Zandvoort. I'm joined here by Voltorium. Hi, Voltorium. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. Obviously, getting into this race brought to you by Gridfinder with NSC, and then the lovely Simply Race and SimStaff also there on display as well. We'll be shortly going into a short qualifying, which will be just a little bit of time for these drivers to go out on track, get warmed up, but also most importantly, try and not to give Chris's Pillacorus yet another pole position.
Chris's is too OP, man. But who's your money on today? I see some really great drivers in the lobby today. We've got people from Wooly to Geek. Well, I don't know. Maybe they've fallen off this season. I wasn't here last week, so you'll tell me. But we are now heading into qualifying. So who is your money on for pole position?
Ben Mills had a very, very step-up race out in Bahrain last time out. Last season, obviously not necessarily being at every race, but definitely having a performance last time out, and you'll want to at least build on that coming into Zandvoort.
Absolutely. I mean, so many great drivers today, and they're all going to be wanting to get pole position right now. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, and Zandvoort is one of those tracks, in my opinion, where weather plays a big factor. It's a bit tricky when it's wet, to say the least, and we are now loading in. So if it's wet, it could be absolutely mayhem. It looks like it's a bit overcast. We'll transition in just a moment. Yes,
yeah,
transition.
But for sure, Zandvoort is one of those circuits where the weather definitely plays effect on the difference in strategies, but also just being able to get clean air matters so much, as it's so hard to overtake in traffic that over two stop is typically a faster overall race duration. Losing time in traffic makes it slower than people who stick out on one stop.
Yes, that is true. The overtaking opportunities at Zandvoort are basically two. That you can do the back straight, which is you might get an overtake, and you can do the main straight, which is you'll probably will get an overtake with DRS. But the rest of the track is quite narrow and not very friendly with at least the 2025 generation of cars, in my opinion.
Yeah, the 2025 generation of cars being quite weak at actually slipstreaming against each other. So if you find yourself in a DRS train or with better ERS management, you can definitely defend off a position, as that slipstream does not build quite as aggressively as it does on other games. And we have seen even last season on many occasions where these drivers would just simply pull away from one another just because they have more ERS to deploy, even with DRS closed and in a disadvantaged situation.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got people out on track here. Pretty much everyone is out, but we've got Ben Mills going to take the first flying lap right now.
Yeah, heading into turn number one of the many banked corners that make this track so iconic, and why people do love to keep it on the calendar, though the racing quality is kind of a bit of a dive. Now, through the major banking corner, you really need to get low to get that exit really nailed on. These cars aren't quite as sharp through that section as they were in the older generation, but they still take it very quickly. And then this is where that ground effect really applies through this tight, twisty section, when you just keep building on that speed and it maintains that higher level of downforce, as we do get a sector 3 yellow flag for people going slowly. But Ben Mills right now keeping it nailed on through as we head towards that final sector that is got that oh so critical exit speed that you must nail to get a good lap. And potentially Ben Mills might get a little bit of a slipstream, but instead the traffic dips out of the way and will clear the air for him to dive through this banking and round out one of the quickest lap times and one of the shortest circuits on the entire F1 calendar, and gets himself a 108.1 to start off qualifying.
I think that's a pretty good representative time for today. I'm not too sure what to expect out of the pole lap, but I'd say it's going to be pretty much up there. We may see someone go as low as 1.7.5, but I think that's pretty good. We've had a few more people completing their laps a bit further down the order now. Luke Sawyer with 112. That's on the Inters. There is an Inters poll. I believe there's still points being applied for Inters poll, so we'll have to see who gets that. So Chris Spilicoris looks like the favorite for Inters poll at the moment, as Woolly Blobs comes across the line to get second place for the time being.
Yeah, and already in that Williams, just like Ben Mills, leading the way of the non-drivers going for that Inter's pole time. Though it is critical to mention that some of the fastest drivers are going for that Inter's pole. Newt, Chris Pilacoris, Luke Sawyer, Liam Doherty, and Alex, all very, very competitive drivers coming in from last season. All with very, very good seasons, but Chris Pilacoris especially one to watch on that pole sitting time. But for Wooly, he will want to keep a good qualifying like he did last time, but this time actually not surrender some of that lead throughout the race, and he will want to stay out of getting any kind of penalties, which plagued him all of last season long.
Yeah, I mean, he probably had a shot at the championship last season, but a few suboptimal performances from him, I think, let him down there in the last season. But this season he'll be fighting again. You'll have to remind me what he got in the last race.
He would have got back onto the podium, but ended up having a 5-second penalty that dropped him back down to P5.
That's not quite ideal, yeah. But obviously the performance is there, so if he can just beat the other fastest drivers like Chris's, Luke Sawyer, Ben Mills, then I mean, I think he's fighting with them.
Yeah, he also ended up having a bit of a bad pit stop cycle, got undercut by the F1 drivers as well. He's qualified on P2 and definitely was the favourite in terms of challenging Chris's until he went and had all of those issues that played him throughout the race, which seems to be a key characteristic that Wooly keeps having to tackle. But right now, it's both of the Williams leading the way by over 0.5 of a second, next to Lally in third in that Racing Bulls car. But plenty of times, as P11 down to P17, all drivers contesting that Interspole time, who will be going back out on track for round number 2 very, very shortly.
Well, I believe this is a new driver, Lally. I don't think I've seen this driver before, so will be good to see where they can perform today. If do you recollect where they were last week?
Can't remember their exact position, but they was definitely within that upper midfield pack, but not within that top 6 race at the very, very front of the field. A little bit surrounded in their own little bubble at times in the race, though. But did show a decent form of consistency while in that free air.
Well, we'll keep an eye on them throughout the season then, showing some good promise for debut, at least. Meanwhile, we've got some veterans such as Geek, and currently down in 9th. I think they had an Inters. No, they did not do an Inters run, so Geek is currently just slow. That's all I can say.
Poor Geek, man, calling them slow this early on into qualifying. Plenty of time, 10 minutes left on the clock for these drivers to find a better lap time. But I'm not sure if that's just a visual bug, but they've seemed to have lost their left front wing end plate and some even more increased damage on top of that as well. This lap time not going to be anything of up to speed if that wing damage stands true.
Yeah, I think that's just straight back into the pits if I've ever seen that. So let's have another look at Ben Mills in the middle of his flying lap right now. We'll have to see where he is performing after he crosses the sector line in just a moment. That's a purple sector, so he's up on his time, I think.
I will say I hope that they do fix the bug or have fixed the bug. So I do know previously that it would flag up purple on almost any onboard you're just watching, so long as there's improving their own lap time rather than popping up green. But Ben Mills does improve that lap time and is only 5 thousandths of a second away from a 107 with that 108.005 finding 1/10 over Liam, who slots into second and pushes down Woolley down to fourth. As Alex is in third, Newt finds a time that puts him into fifth before getting pushed down by that second Aston Martin of Chris's Pinacoris. He's still 2/10 off of the pace at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we've got high expectations of Chris's today, absolutely. So being 2/10 down is not ideal at all for him, at least. But there's still, what was that, like 8 minutes on the clock? Plenty of time to do a few more laps, assuming they have enough tires. I don't know what the tire allocation is on this weekend, actually.
Zandvoort typically is quite strict on the amount of tires. People do go for the middle range typically, just due to the high tire wear in the race. As we get a little bit of a spin on Chris's in lap, but what doesn't affect any of his actual quick laps out there in the end. We'll say nice to see some of the drivers using the special skinned variants of the cars, as that Red Bull and that Chrome McLaren do look very appealing amongst the crowds, and it's nice to see Newton Ben standing out just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a little confusing at times seeing the different liveries, but they are very nice and refreshing to look at after, well, so long of the same liveries now. We've had these on the F125 game for close to a year now, and it doesn't look like we're going to be getting any new ones, at least for a little while still.
Yeah, I just waiting for this session to ramp up just a little bit, going into those final few sets of laps. But we do see that the top six is only spread by 0.4 of a second. Between Echelon is only spread by 1.6 seconds as well. I would like to remind everyone that out at Bahrain, we had a very, very, very close qualifying as well. And it does determine a lot more here than it does at Bahrain, as the overtaking opportunities are way harder to come by, especially if the drivers are on pace with each other and are formed up in a DRS train.
Yeah, it looks like everybody is starting to come out for their outlap now. Got pretty much everybody on their outlap or starting a flying lap. So lots of traffic right now. See how the drivers manage it.
Yeah, the outlap can be kind of critical in this game. It's not one of the harshest games on the outlap that there have ever been, but with the changes to the tyre warmers in the history of F1, you do have to work to get those tyres critically up to temperature. But with how soft the Pirellis and how easy they are to set outside of the window, you need to make sure you're not over pushing them on that outlap until you get onto your flying lap to keep them in that optimum performance zone. But as we get a bit of a backlog in this final sector, some of these drivers might find it a little bit hard to find a clear lap for themselves, though they will get that slipstream advantage just a little bit down that main straight, as we got two cars very close on track, as Alex leads away from that Red Bull behind. But I do think it is Geek, as he is running the standard Red Bull livery, but he does buy himself a little bit of time going in as he locks up through the critical banked left-hand corner that is so tricky, but luckily for these drivers, probably not paying them as much of pain as turn 10 did at Bahrain, as Alex still looks quite planted, but will struggle to find lap time improvement through sector number 1, as he now rounds through that ending mid-bit of that first sector, which is quite late through this corner sequence as well, as he then goes onto the straight and will get that DRS wide open, but no slipstream assistance to help himself out just that little bit further, as plenty of other people now are trying to set in their lap times. This won't be the final opportunity for any of these drivers, but it will be a critical chance before the tyre allocation starts to get a little bit short for everyone else in this session. For those who have done an Inters pole will have just one more set compared to the drivers like Ben Mills, who would avoid this set of laps, but Alex won't find a lap time improvement that time around for himself.
He did improve, but not in position, so we are now on to Chris's. Will Chris's be able to improve and get himself up on the front row? Not enough.
No, but he does top his own teammate and give us 3 drivers within 0.02 of a second of each other, giving us a lovely lineup for that battle at the top of the timesheet.
And that's Josh Woolley on an aborted lap, so we'll probably be heading into the pits here, yes.
Yeah, all the drivers going to be going into the pits with 3:55 left on the clock. There will only potentially be one more set of laps for the drivers who are in the pit lane, as Luke Sawyer is currently in P5, a driver who did an amazing race last time out, had to defend through the entirety of the back end of that second stint, sorry, but his first stint, and that's the start of his second stint, the undercut that he had performed on the rest of the entire field had raised him into such an amazing position, starting down in the lower end of the top 10 and coming out with a podium in an amazing consistency race for himself.
It seems like Ben Mills here is on a flying lap. I mean, I think he's pretty much settled his pole position here now, but still trying to prove he's faster than everybody else, so let's just follow him for now, as the traffic has quietened down now. He's got some clean air in front of him.
Clean air is the name of the game at Zandvoort, as it does flash purple in the middle sector yet again for Ben Mills, potentially finding more time for himself to put himself way further into the lead, but it's going to be hard to find time when you slide like that on the most critical corner for momentum on this circuit, and that just see him diving straight into the pit lane and finding no lap time improvement, but he still has that provisional pole on his side as he retires from the session, as he will have no time to go back out and find a lap time improvement, which will leave Liam Doherty to start his flying lap as the rest of the people. They'll start flooding out of the pit lane behind him, giving him a clear open road besides for one Aston Martin that lays slightly ahead.
I'm not too sure if Liam is on a flying lap. He seems to be going a little bit slow, and he's charging his battery, so yeah, I don't think he's on a flyer here. So probably just looking to go next. There's still time in the session, of course, as everybody is out on track now.
It's going to be a little bit cluttered for everyone on the track, but with 1:33 on the timesheet, there is plenty of time for everyone to get out on lap, which will lead to Woolley being one of the top contenders, currently first to set his lap on the dying stages of this race, using all of that track limits as he swings through the corner, really trying to make it as wide as possible to optimize that ground effect usage as far as he can. As we see the lap tires are in the 108 as he completely spins it around and lands into the gravel trap. Woolley will find his lap ending up in ruin. He will have time to recenter his car and potentially go again, but he's going to completely run out of ERS, have no time to clean off those tires, so he's going to have a hell of a job on his hands if he does go for another flying lap. Now, Alex Lansdale, we did see locking up through that corner again, which won't give him an obvious lap time improvement through that first sector on his previous lap time, where he had also locked up through that banked corner, but now he will go through this tight section that is a little bit wide on entry, but always seems to tighten up on you when you least expect it due to the off-camber nature of the rotation of the corner, but he sets a purple middle sector going into the stadium section of the circuit. Then he will now approach that final corner and hope he sees no triples like other drivers have found, and will keep it locked up and open that DRS wide open to round him out onto the back end of this straight. As the time has gone by, he will cross the line and not find any lap time improvement, stuck down in P number 4 as the upper drivers hunt for that increase in lap time, but Ben Husky won't be one of those drivers. Will Newt be one of those instead? Starting the lap very late into this session, currently in P number 6 ahead of Wooly, and with 5 drivers ahead of him that he's going to be hunting on down as Alpha crosses the line into P number 11 at the moment, following up his teammate Thomas in that Mercedes as Assassin win the top 10 last time out. We want to get a decent performance, but struggling here at Zandvoort, down into P number 14 as GMT will cross over and push him down one spot further. But it's Chris's Pillar Chorus, like always, seemingly able to find that lap time when it matters the most, with only a couple of challenges left to go again. Willie will jump up to P number 5 for the time being, but Chris's jumps into 107s with that 107.9 as Liam Doherty will jump into P number 4, but Newt will cross the line last and not find a critical lap time improvement as Thomas is clearly backed out of a lap.
What a monster performance by Chris there at the very last moment. I mean, the only driver in the 107s, and by 1/20th of a second.
Yeah, finding not much time over Ben Mills, but still finding the time, none again, to top himself over the Williams in qualifying. The team that seems to be challenging Aston Martin the most at the front of the grid is that Williams car of Ben Mills and Wooly Blobbs, but both drivers not able to find clean back ends of the sessions. Yes, Wooly did find a lap time improvement, but what could he have found if he didn't spin and get those tires dirty?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That spin was just him going slightly too wide, touching the grass on the corner entry, and yeah, the rear just stepping out on him. All entirely preventable. He pushed it too hard, and now he has to fight all the way from 6th place, I believe. And yeah, it's not looking too great for his championship at the moment. Chris, on the other hand, I mean, it's a perfect start for him. Going to be on the front row in pole position. And well, I forgot who it was. I think Ben Mills in 2nd place, starting next to him. And yeah, everybody is now getting ready. So whilst they're getting ready, shall we have a word from our sponsor? Thank you to our sponsor, Grid Finder, for sponsoring this event. And back to the action. Everybody is now getting ready on the line. Should be starting the race in just a moment. What are your predictions?
My predictions is as long as Chris doesn't get away cleanly into turn number 1 and gap the field by a second before the first lap ends like he did out in Bahrain, he won't get the same opportunity to be able to just keep it clean, keep it simple for himself, which will give him a much more fearful challenge. And with Ben Mills looking way more racy than he did last season, in 2nd place on the grid, with huge potential to improve upon his performance last time out, where he did come out in 2nd, even though he started out lower down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have at least 3 people fighting Chris here into turn 1. And I mean, what can he do realistically? This is an interesting track, but I do think due to how hard it is to overtake in places, he might be able to pull away, but at the same time, if people are fighting him properly through the first few corners, he may be a little bit screwed.
Yeah, it's easy to challenge someone at Zandvoort if you're in a strict 1v1, but if you're in a train, then even if you're the second person in that said train, it becomes really difficult to make any kind of overtaking moves due to how high risk it is and the nature of you having to use some of that extra ERS to defend across the entirety of the lap and then not being able to save it just to deploy it on that main straight, which is your only real opportunity to overtake without having to take a huge gamble, which means that you only see overtakes at the rest of the circuit if someone is way out of position or if someone is battling in a 1v1 situation with no one else around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, however, think that turn 1 and the banked hairpin on lap 1 are the places to look for right at the start here. That is where we may see any contact, any good overtakes, and, of course, any crashes, as the drivers are taking a little bit of time to get ready here. So hopefully we'll be able to see all of that action in just a moment.
See, fine tuning your setup is very, very important to being able to not overly wear those tires. The higher the downforce you wear, the higher you risk of over scrubbing your tires in terms of just keeping them heat hot all of the time. But it can provide stability to certain drivers who otherwise will just slip and slide all over the circuit, which will cause more wear than actually just keeping the car stable in certain circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very high downforce circuit. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is. And I mean, there's so many different ways you can approach this circuit, I think. Just looking at, what is it, turn 2 or 3 alone. But here we go. We've got the 5 red lights, and take it away.
With the 5 red lights in the sky, they will fall down in the gloom of Zandvoort as Chris's Pillacoris will get away cleanly yet again as Luke Sawyer tucks into P number 3 and Luke Doherty gets past the Williams, but will have to fight side by side to keep that position as Alex finds his way on the inside line and is able to tough him out as they make contact on the wing, and we see a McLaren go way off on the sidewides as Ben Husky drops out of the top 10, potentially picking up damage and clipping into the wall as well, as we see Newt having to go the long way around that outside as we get a yellow flag early on this race.
Car.
And a full-on safety car through the first section of this track. Everyone desperate for that track position as at the very, very back of the grid. CT08 losing that front wing and going wide into the gravel.
Well, that is certainly a way to take that corner. Okay. CT08 may be struggling a little bit here at the back. So let's switch back to the front. So what did we have? Chris's keeping the lead. Ben Mills in second place. Luke Saw. I don't think much has changed towards the front here. Let's have a little look. Yeah, so Alex Lansdale gaining 1 position. Willie gaining 1 position. Liam Doxey losing to Herber.
Yeah, Liam's struggling on that race start. He gets a little bit ouncy, tries to make a move forward on Alex, then gets absolutely pushed wide on that banking, which then checks him up on the exit, and Liam Woolley finds a clean move to get past in the end, just before the safety car.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have about 2 laps on the safety car here. That's how it usually goes in the BUSR lobbies. Just need the CT08 to come into the pits, get a new front wing, catch up to the back of the safety car, and away we go with another 34 laps of the race. So, yeah, a bit of an eventful start here at the moment. Got a few position changes towards the back, but the top 3 remain as it was.
Chris is going to want a clean start yet again, but he seems to nail it every single time we've seen it this season. One of the huge advantages that he did display last season as well is that critical ability just to get clean race starts and then just be able to find consistency across the rest of the race. He didn't necessarily need to dominate everyone else in pace, because once he got that lead, kind of Verstappen-esque in clinicality, he would just manage the gap to the car behind to keep himself safe while managing his car and his tyres to extend how long he can go and keep that consistency up.
And I mean, with a safety car so early on, can't really take advantage by going to the pits. The tires won't last to the end of the race, probably. So, if you were to do a 2-stop, then this probably would not have been it. But if you were doing a 1-stop, then this may have been it. I don't know. I'm not much of a strategist, but there's two ways to look at this. If you're doing a 2-stop, then you want to do it much later on. Although I'm seeing everybody starting on the medium, so you could potentially get put on the hards and try make it to the end of the race.
You can definitely make it to the end of the race on a 1-stop strategy at Zandvoort, but the overall pace is at a negative, though this safety car will help just a little bit with that average tyre wear across these early laps. Though the main difficulty of that 2-stop strategy is, unless half of the field ends up diverting towards the 2-stop, you'll run into too much traffic on the 1-stop strategy, and you will get held up by people down in P number 10 when you're trying to race for P number 1, and you need that clean air to find that lap time advantage on being softer, fresher tyres.
Yeah, and that's just one of the disadvantages of this current generation of cars. I look forward to seeing what the new generation in 2026 will look like for tyre wear and following other cars. We've seen a little bit from testing so far, but we've yet to see it from a race perspective.
Yeah, it seems like these new generations of cars will have a very, very different style of racing, which will potentially be a positive, but potentially be a negative. But what is going to be critical to the race of Chris's Pinnacle tonight in this generation of cars will be this race restart and how he can control the field. As you see him weaving, delaying that race restart, he doesn't want to give any extra time to Ben Mills when he needs, but he still needs to catch him off guard and get a clean getaway, which he does seem to do. He does get a little bit of a gap on Ben Mills and is able to keep the position defended. But further behind, we see a few drivers trying to go side by side as Wooly is trying to get on the inside of Alex Lansdale, but we've seen it before. He's able to defend the position from this inside line and will try and shut him out, but Wooly is blocking him down as well. Both are going to have to compromise their exits as Alex makes contact with the Alpine, which lets through Wooly Blob on the outside line due to that contact and harder acceleration, but he nearly tries to find his way back on the inside, but opts out of it to keep his race alive, as it is 36 laps around this circuit in total, and Wooly finds his way into P number 4, one position down on Ben Mills, as Alex Lansdale slips down yet another position in favour of the Williams at the front of the grid. Meanwhile, further down we get another yellow flag as CT08 is off of the circuit yet again, and you get Jake also going a little bit wide in that Alpine and falling off the back of the grid.
Yeah, I wonder if they may have had some contact that led to CT08 off the track, but no safety car this time around, so we are clean to continue racing here. We've had a full racing lap now, finally, and nothing has changed at the front except for Wooly making up another position.
Yeah, Wooly able to capitalize effectively on this race start to make up for a little bit of a qualifying woes, but we're definitely one of the quickest drivers on 1-lap pace. We need to see the consistency across a race distance without picking up penalties, unlike he showed us last season out in BUSR. But this is a decent start for him as Geek, one of the most experienced drivers on the grid, trying to make a move on to Thomas and the Mercedes lower down in the grid. Right now finding a little bit of difficulty, but still showing that racecraft and ability to get racy.
Yeah, and unfortunately CT08 retiring there in the pits. Jake coming out, I'm assuming, with a new set of tyres and a new front wing. So he'll probably be looking to make it to the end here for sure now on this set of tyres. I do think it's possible, but he'll probably be struggling towards the end. So we'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on him later on in the race. But for now, we've still got Chris Spillacoris leading the pack from Ben Mills.
Yeah, Ben Mills trying to keep up on the back of Chris Spillacoris and being able to set that fastest lap with that DRS assistance. A huge benefit for his ability to even race for P number 1 this time around, rather than just sitting in P number 2 and then losing it at the dying stages to Luke Sawyer and dropping to P number 3, is the fact that he's on the back of Chris Spillacoris from the start of this race. Last time when he raced at Bahrain, he lost Chris's already by this stage of the race due to lap number 1, but with that safety car neutralization, he's been brought back into the fray with Chrysis again, and will hopefully put in a challenge so that he can't just get away cleanly.
Yeah, and looking further down, we've got a DRS train here. Well, is DRS enabled? I didn't see that, actually. It may not be enabled yet. But we've got a train of about 7 drivers here right now, from Chris's down to last gen Newt in 7th.
Yeah, you tend to typically see the same 7 drivers leading the way in this series. Very, very experienced. All of these drivers from last season out, Newt all the way up to Chris's Pillacoris, have all seen themselves standing on the podium at some point in time and definitely contending for it on multiple occasions. And with the DRS assistance, they should all be keeping up with each other, even if this is a slightly weak circuit for them. As you're seeing Wally having to take a little bit of a wider line in the dirty air of Luke Sawyer and that Racing Bulls, who is trying to make his way forward through this grid. As we see Alex actually getting really racy on the back of Wally, who's getting very much delayed on the back of Luke Sawyer, and potentially showing that this train isn't going as quickly as the pace of some of the drivers lower down in the field, which will really open up the overtaking opportunities if they're able to manage that ERS as much as possible. But critically, what we saw last time out at Bahrain is Alex Lansdale's usage of ERS compared to Wally Blobs. They were both fighting on circuit against each other, even with Wally Blobs having a penalty that affected the result in the end. But Wally could not get past Alex Lansdale for the duration of the race, because Alex always managed to find extra ERS to deploy in defense, and we're potentially seeing that here on the offense as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there's any moves being made into turn 1 here. Quite unlikely with this being a big DRS train. Turn 2, however, is, I think, where most of the action may be happening today, because you can take the upper line or the lower line, and that completely changes the exit.
Yeah, being able to change your exit style can definitely help, but unlike last time out, we don't see that same level of difficulty coming out from Wally Blobs, and he doesn't get challenged anywhere near as much by Alex this time. I will be grateful for that change in action, as this form of a train does seem to stay about this lap around.
Yeah, and Chris is starting to eke out a bit of time from Ben Mills. The gap is now 6/10 thereabouts. We're losing just a little bit of time. DRS helping bring it down a little bit, but Chris is just showing that he has got the pace today.
Sometimes it is just simply about having the consistency and pace that will end up dragging you to the end of the race, especially at circuits like Zandvoort. And it's kind of a shame that we didn't get to have China on the calendar this time around due to a bug that has been left unfixed with the outside curb on the banked corner, but instead we replace it with a circuit with even more banking in comparison.
And we have got one of the new drivers, Lally, into the pits early on. So they may be going for a 2-stop here then, switching onto the mediums. Definitely a 2-stop. They have to pit again for a different compound of tyres, of course. So those mediums lasted them about 7 racing laps. So we'll probably be expecting them to pit for their last time around lap 16, 17 maybe.
Yeah, potentially committing to a 2-stop strategy early on and just making sure you have that free air is going to be explicitly advantageous in comparison to committing to it way later on in the race. As the later you leave it, the less time you have to make advantage of those tires, and the more likely you are to tackle that train. But right now we've got 2 separate forms of DRS trains. You've got the leading 7, all in this one big plaque, that will probably stick on the same strategy as each other, unless any of them are daring to go differently. But the fact that they're in the DRS train will definitely help the rest of them behind the leading 2 to manage their tyres, as they can just stick on with the DRS and ERS management rather than having to push themselves. Whereas Thomas and Alpha, the 2 teammates, getting racing for the lead of the second pack down in the 8th and 9th position at the moment, but that is potentially going to change with Lally down in 15th on that alternate strategy. But interesting to see that 2 teammates trying to get a little bit racy with each other, and potentially the one finding more pace than the other.
Yeah, and I mean, being teammates and them being so close to each other, they don't want to be anywhere near each other, really, when it comes time to pit. Otherwise, they'll be losing time, or at least one of them will be losing time. So for Thomas to make that overtake there was probably quite crucial for him, because now he dictates when to pit.
It's also somewhat on the drivers who are faster to pick the two-stop strategy. When you have people in a sim racing league that are all relatively the same place, you need to find the opportunity to switch that two-stop strategy. But if you're in the conditions where there is a bit of a pace discrepancy between the front 7 and the back 7, you really need to optimize your pace by going on these quicker tires. Otherwise, you will lose out. And it's probably beneficial if you're the slower drivers to go on a one-stop if you're racing the faster drivers. But right now, there is a clear separation between the two trains of 5 seconds as GMT picks up a speeding penalty coming into the pit lane that will thwart all of his efforts to go onto this two-stop strategy.
Yeah, I mean, he's back on. He's on the hards. I'm not completely sure what tire he was on before that. It may have been mediums, it may have been hards, but 10-second penalty. I mean, would you rather take that in the pits, or would you rather take that on track? I would rather take that on track, to be honest.
I'd rather take it on track as long as there's no late safety car that bunches everyone back on up. However, with these DRS trains at the moment, it does seem like it would still be a negative either way, as we do have clusters of cars sticking together, so you'll jump not just one position, but a whole bunch if you still have that lingering at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you've just gotta pick up the pace if you're in that position and try to gap everyone.
Yes, New is seemingly struggling to keep up with this top 7, constantly without the 5/10 margin, as Geek is able to make a move onto Alpha, but that is simply because he is diving on into that pit lane, as we do see a McLaren of Ben Huskies following Alpha on in, and these drivers definitely committing to this two-stop strategy in the second back now.
I'm not sure, because they did switch compounds, so they could be trying to take these hards all the way to the end now. Of course, they may also be seeing something about the weather. We do not know what the weather is like. It's rather overcast. There's a chance for rain. If they see that it may rain later, then they may just be doing a stop now and then hoping it does rain and then putting on the inters. And in the meanwhile, making up some positions.
Yeah, and it would be really, really, really beneficial to get these fresh tires on, get that pace benefit, as when the pit stops does come around, they potentially would have caught up all of that time by that point, or everyone else would have had to done a way later stop and had the pit with such a short window that they don't get the benefit of the new tires.
Noticed Ben sliding around a fair bit around some corners, but maybe not fully comfortable on the setup that they have got, pushing the car a little bit too hard at points. So got to keep an eye on Ben here, see how they perform throughout the season, I think.
Talking about Ben Huskies, if we look at the front of the grid, Ben Mills has actually been able to get into the front, as we see the upper Ben of Ben Huskies getting an overtake easily done on the back end of the middle end of the straight. But yeah, as we switch over, Ben Mills, while we're off camera looking at other people pit lane and doing their own sections of action, Ben Mills has managed to slide his way past Chris's Pillacoris. And finally, outside of a pit stop sequence, we have a new race leader for the first time in BUSR, and that is Ben Mills, the driver, who was clearly the second fastest last time out on average, though he still got picked that P2 position just based on tyre survivability. Chris's Pillacoris now being tasked with trying to race back at Ben Mills.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we managed to miss that. Clearly, we're rivaling. What's the word?
Competing against Monaco.
we are obviously competing against F1 TV direction, and just like F1 TV direction, we miss all the key battles.
But we don't miss the key pit stop infringements coming out of Alex Lansdale, who decides to completely cut that white line on the pit lane exit, as he already picked up a 10-second penalty. Newt and Alex both dive into the pit lane at the exact same time, but Newt ends up getting undercut by Lally, which might thwart his ability to end up in this race just a little bit if he can't dispatch of that slightly slower car with these new fresher tires very, very quickly. But at least he does not have a 10-second penalty to his name.
Yeah, I mean, that basically puts a stop to Alex's race here. He'll be lucky to end up on the podium, if that, particularly with how close the racing is towards the front now.
The race at the front switches to a 5-car battle with Ben Mills.
Ben with a 10-second penalty!
Ben,
oh, that is massive.
Consistency he found last time, thwarted by a 10-second penalty. We are seeing so many drivers trying to find the barest of margins coming into the pit lane, but they are just daring the risk of the 10-second penalty. And that's 2 out of the top 7 cars both picking up that penalty. And side by side with Alex Lansdale, you see the benefit of that undercut here at Zandvoort. It is ever so strong due to how high the tire wear is and due to how much grip benefit you get. Ben Mills barely able to keep on to that position, but now defending from a driver who also has 10-second penalties to their name.
Yeah, and I mean, both of their races are severely, severely damaged now. They would need a miracle to happen for them to score good points now, but we've still got Liam Doherty, Wooly, and Chris's at the front here. We'll probably be pitting this lap, actually, so yeah, there they go. Surprisingly, Liam doesn't join them. However, Chris's and Josh both dive into the pits, avoiding the 10-second penalty, mind you.
Very important that they don't get that 10-second penalty. Just leaving that off of the counter, leaving it off of the table. Even if they lose the track position with the way that that first stint went, if everyone punches back up and we get another 7-car train, they will have a huge benefit. But right now, we're seeing everyone who ended up coming in the pit lane first massively benefiting, as Lally's on the back of Wooly Blobs down in 8th position, and Newt, Luke Sawyer, Alex, Ben, and Liam in specific, 13 seconds in the lead, is now in a desperate position to have to get into this pit lane, as he is going to rapidly fall down the order, pitting last out of this train of everyone who has found a lot more time on fresh tyres.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the average pit stop time around here? Like 20 to 30 seconds, somewhere in between that. And he's only got 12 seconds lead, so he will be losing at least 5 positions here, if not more. And that just sucks for Liam. He should have dived into the pits last lap, to be honest. Maybe he was hoping for like a last-minute safety car or something. And to be fair, we weren't far off that. There was a little bit of contact here and there on everybody's outlaps on these new tires. And Liam comes out of the pits. Where will he be? Oh, it's not looking good for Liam.
Yo, he's going to actually potentially fall behind the battle for P number 8 on track between Ben Husky's Lally and the contact with Alpha. He's now going to have to be desperately trying to get through that combat, and it's going to completely put him out of the race as Alpha and Lally both end up sideways in the banned corner, and hopefully for Lally's race, who's been completely barged out of the way by the trio of drivers, won't have picked up any kind of floor damage.
Yeah, I don't know how much floor damage affects things in F125, but being ground effect cars, that would not be good, particularly around a circuit such as this.
Yes, we do finally see the race settling on in as Jake gets out of the way. Chris's parcours is 1.7 seconds with Newt and Wooly behind, trying to catch up to the top 3 drivers of Ben Mills, Alex, and Luke Sawyer. As Luke Sawyer, just like he did in Bahrain, benefiting from everyone else's troubles while he keeps it clean and pits early. But Alex Lansdale, the master of the ERS control out in Bahrain, instantly putting that effort to good use to get past Ben Mills, as potentially he realizes the desperation and is going for a full push alternative now, as he does have that 10 seconds to his name.
Yeah, so although Alex Lansdale and Ben Mills are leading the pack here with their 10-second penalties, they are far from that, actually. The actual race leader at the moment would be Luke Sawyer, in that beautiful pink livery. And then, surprisingly far down, Chris's, but we'll have to see once the tyres get warmed up properly and stuff, what his pace is actually looking like.
You'll probably catch up to the back of this train knowing the pace that Christos Pilakouris tends to have. However, Wooly Blob's also losing out a huge amount of positions as well. Both of these drivers doing the quickest, especially in terms of one-lap pace and individual pace in clean air. But Wooly Blob's in Pacific always seeming to have better qualifying results than he ends up in the race. This season is going to be a season of trying to improve that factor, and getting past Newt on track is going to be one of the first ways inviting him into doing that performance.
Yeah, unfortunately for Wooly, his races haven't been as good as his qualifying sessions, but it doesn't stop him from trying, and I think we just saw Geek making a move on GMT UFC there. Not much of a move with GMT having a 10-second penalty, but will be very important for Geek if he wants to catch up towards Thomas in front of him.
Yeah, that battle of the top 7, does shrink slightly to the top 6, but Wooly goes off of the circuit, trying to push behind the back of Newt, ends up going wide and losing position to Liam Doherty. As I was about to mention, that the top 7 goes down to a top 6 battle due to the issues in the race on track. We see Wooly having an issue of his own, making it now just a scrap of the top 5 on circuit, and with Newt slipping out of DRS of Christos Pilakouris, potentially he will now find himself struggling, as Alex Lansdale will have a bit of a swip swap with Ben Mills, leading the way now at the front of the circuit. Luke Sawyer is so happy about this situation at this point.
Oh, he is pleasantly delighted, especially with Christos Pilakouris not really gaining much time. I say that as he starts to gain a little bit of time, but he was about 1.7 seconds down a few corners ago.
Yeah, only got 2 other drivers now on the same strategy without penalties, without a large gap behind him. Luke Sawyer gets to tuck on in as the 3rd car in a train, which is the optimum position to save ERS, to save tyre wear, as you don't need to push as hard, but at the same time, he is now getting that Aston Martin rearing its head in the background. It is now on the cusp of that DRS margin, which is going to have to put him into a position where he has to try just a little bit more to make sure he's not getting any advancements from that second Aston Martin. But he's still going to be happy with this position, even if he's got that championship leader trying to hound him down on the back end.
Yeah, so, very close there for Luke Sawyer. I actually thought he was going to make contact. But, yeah, very important few laps here. What's the tyre difference? So, Chris has 1 lap younger tyres, so not much, but could be making a slight difference, like, right now. But then in a couple laps' time, it won't be much of a difference anymore, if at all. But yeah, it seems like Sector 1, Chris is losing time to Luke Sawyer, but then gaining throughout Sectors 2 and 3, which would be helped by the DRS.
Yeah, just having that clear air and getting good exit speed, but still having that DRS will slowly EQ on out as long as your pace is roughly about the same. And you can have so much more confidence into the heavier braking zones as well, due to not being just ever that's close. But you do have to make sure you're not over descending it into the back of the car in front of you. But as this front 4 train now form up properly into being a bit more of a DRS train, we do see Newt, as kind of expected from his earlier pace, dropping out of the top 4 and making it a 2-horse race with the 10-second penalties, and then a 2-horse race behind against Luke Sawyer and Christos Pilakouris. The top 4 having 3 of the drivers that all stood on the podium last time out.
Yeah, I mean, got some of the best drivers here, all fighting for the win. Unfortunately, Ben Mills and Alex, they won't be really in contention for it with those 10-second penalties, but it would still be satisfying, I'm sure, for them to come first on track.
It's always a glory to come first on track. It proves that you have the pace. It gives you at least the gratitude of knowing I'm able to win a race. I'm able to fight in this championship. But the negative is you know that you could have had those points of just not making that simple mistake. And it is a simple mistake. It's a mistake that these drivers will potentially regret for the entire rest of the season. But they need to make sure that they make it count, and they need to make sure that they make these overtakes stick, and that they keep this rapid pace that they are currently lapping at consistently stick. Right now, the gap to Newt is up to 3.6 seconds, and is slowly but steadily growing as well. These top four now have found a decent rhythm of pace that is quicker than the rest of the field, but they only have 13 laps to try and extend it to 10 seconds and minimize the damage that Ben and Alex both will have to deal with.
And I mean, there's still 13 laps to go, so anything can happen. These drivers are just trying to keep their positions for now, and then try to survive this this DRS train. We've got a few things happening towards the back. I'm not sure what that was. Oh, Thomas coming out of the pit lane. That's some new hards. Ben Huskins also on new hard tires, so these will be lasting them to the end of the race now. They may not even have any more tires, I'm not sure. Besides the inters, that is.
Yeah, definitely seeing that those of the second initial pack are definitely looking at the two-stop strategy almost as a guarantee, whereas this front four, not guaranteed to be on a one-stop. There's always room if everyone else pits to a two-stop, but Liam with a huge lock-up on the defense of and re-overtake of Newt down in P number 5, and now be overtaking Newt even for P number 5, potentially hoping to crouch down Chris's Pillacoris, who's in that train out in front on the newest of the new tyres on this entire top 7 grid.
Yeah, and lots of stuff happening back here. Everybody diving into the pits. So, these are the drivers that will be doing the two-stop strategy. I think everybody at the front is definitely sticking on the one-stop. As we can see, it's pretty much impossible to get through the traffic, and they know that they won't be able to make up the positions if they were to pit again.
Yeah, the two-stop strategy always going to be the quicker in terms of pure lap time here at Zandvoort, of how quick the laps go by, and 36 seconds of technicality to rough yourself through. The only issue is that dirty air typically as well, but the second group not necessarily on that same level of pace and the same page of the top 7 in the first place to even get racy with them, as Newt drops down into P number 7 on the oldest of the 7 leading drivers' tyres, as he does come into the pit lane, potentially switching to that two-stop strategy, now that he's got a 15-second gap to Geek and an even bigger 8-second gap behind that.
Geek also coming into the pits, but I think this may be a required stop, because I think he may have done 2 stints on the mediums. So Geek finishing his fire strategy here now. And coming out looks like in 12th. So not quite ideal for Geek, but he may be able to make up some positions in a few laps' time when tires start to wear for people ahead of him.
With the sky gaining some sunshine, with the clouds dissipating just a little bit over the BUSR round number 2 here at Zandvoort, we see Newt pitting in P number 7 and opening up the opportunity for the entire rest of the top 7 to now switch over to that two-stop strategy without too much worry on their hands of losing track position. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys do opt into it, but it is always going to be a risky situation, as we've already seen multiple drivers pick up 10-second penalties, and Ben Mills and Alex Lansdale will have to serve them if they do choose to switch to that two-stop strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben and Alex are pretty much locked in for the one-stop now. However, for somebody like Wooly and Liam, I think it's completely on the cards. They would have to pit this lap, of course. Otherwise, Newt would catch up too much, I think, on those fresh tires.
I do think the two-start strategy is definitely aggressive, but definitely works more effectively here at Zandvoort, as we've mentioned previously. And I wouldn't be surprised if Newt has a lot of pace, but if all 6 drivers commit to the one-stop strategy, he probably won't see himself getting very far due to the pure amount of traffic that he'll have to fight his way through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, there's a yellow flag here. Not sure what happened. Somebody is in the pits, and that is ZZ retiring from the race.
Retiring in the pit lane will mean that it won't bring out a safety car, at least for that of Newt, as if it did, it would give a huge favour to everyone out in front of Newt. As this top 4 now still very close to each other, Liam able to bring down that lap time just a little bit more, making this race even more of a struggle for Ben Mills and Alex, who haven't had the pace now that Liam has cleared that traffic of Newt, and so has Wooly, finding a little bit more pace down in P number 6. Right now, the 10-second penalty will place them in 6th and 5th position unless Newt is able to catch up that lap time necessary on those fresher sets of tyres, as Luke Sawyer is more than happy just to keep sitting on behind so long as Chris's Pilacoris doesn't start mounting that pressure onto him.
I think Chris is just waiting for the right time to attack. I think it's far too early to start attacking now. He's probably just conserving his tires, and yeah, I reckon the time to attack will be in the last 3 laps, and that is when Chris will pounce, as we see another move for the lead from Alex.
Yeah, potentially a little bit of the tactical move from Ben Mills to let through Alex, knowing he has a poor exit coming out of that final corner. Just going to let Alex run on through so that they don't lose any lap time and time to the cars behind by squabbling too much, as Ben Mills potentially thinking of the bigger picture with that 10-second penalty, or running into an issue as he is not keeping up with Alex. He let him through on that straight, and now he's actually really struggling. That gap has grown to 0.8 of a second very rapidly to Alex Lansdale, and he needs to try and find some more of that pace. Otherwise, this race is about to get a little bit dangerous for Ben Mills as he opens up that DRS, has plenty of ERS on his tank, maybe just a couple of sectors of issues before he restabilizes himself for the luck of his race.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not too sure how the tires work in this game. So you may have to fill me in, but in real life, of course, sometimes tires go through a rough patch where they're a bit undrivable, but then once you get through that, they go back to being drivable. So maybe he's experiencing that if the game does simulate it, of course. Wooly, whether he's retired. Oh no, Wooly has had enough.
Just Wooly deciding to retire as soon as he flags himself with a 10-second penalty, trying to switch over to the 2-stop strategy. I really do think that it was quite late to switch over to the strategy, even in this scenario, due to the lap count now ticking on down. I think it should have been roughly when Newt had pit, but Newt isn't finding lap time too much on Liam. He is gaining some kind of time, but not that much lap time. But Wooly really trying to go for the aggressive strategy, really pushing his way into the pit lane and being the 5th or 6th driver tonight that we have seen speeding into that pit lane.
Yeah, I mean, this really does not bode well for Wooly's championship. I'm sorry, Josh, but better luck next season.
I can't be saying it on race number 2 already. I know the top 4 drivers are looking very consistent, especially Luke Sawyer and Chris's Pilacoris, as we're potentially seeing that same thing again between Ben Mills and Alex, now just deciding to swip and swap with each other just to keep the pace up rather than battling into turn number 1 with that DRS wide open. But I'd be carrying out Josh Wooly, a driver of his caliber this early in the season. If he can just keep it together for the rest of the season, definitely still has championship title capabilities and pace, but definitely one to look at, as Chris Pilacoris is going to get racing against Luke Sawyer. He's going to send it down one of the most difficult parts of the circuit as he finds a huge run on Luke Sawyer, and now will be more than happy just to sit behind these 2 cars in front and defend the rest of the race against Luke Sawyer. But Luke Sawyer has shown some amazing racecraft before as well. In Bahrain, he made many critical overtakes just in the right moments and potentially has saved onto his tyres just a little bit better than Chris Pilacoris. But as we round into the stadium section, Chris's Pillacoris makes the critical move for P number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very brave move from Chris's. I'd be maybe a little too scared to make it through that corner, but very clean racing from both Chris's and Luke here. A beautiful move from Chris's, and he may have just secured the win with these time penalties, of course. But the race is not over yet. 5 laps to go, and Luke is right on the back of Chris's.
Yeah, Luke's going to keep staying on the back of him as much as he can, but one thing that is for sure is Liam is catching down these top 4 drivers at a rapid pace at the moment, down to 1.2 seconds, potentially now seeing a slip in pace from the leading 2 that is allowing Liam into this race for 3rd, as although Ben and Alex lead the way, they do have those 10-second penalties that will stop them from winning this race, unfortunately, which means the 3 cars behind them are the real race for victory here tonight. But with what's happened to Wooly, with Ben Mills and Alex Lansdale, unless Newt is able to find a further 6 to 7 seconds, he will still fall down into 6th position, even with these penalties on Ben Mills and Alex's hands.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Newt. It was a good attempt with the 2-stop there, but at least he's racing on clean air, and that is Alex making a move on Ben Mills for what is probably now the 5th time this race.
Yeah, they had a couple genuine overtakes, but now we are just at the point in the race where they're just saving the tyres. They need to try and make this work. We're seeing the strategies come out of the 2 drivers. They know what's best for their race, and they don't mind the battle behind them. They're in a different race to the 3 behind, and they need to make sure that they try and keep beating Newt to get the best positions they can, but the drivers behind are just too quick for them to even try and tactically beat them out now. But it's purely down to the race of themselves trying to stay in the top 5.
I mean, if they can just beat Newt, then they've got some very valuable points here, regardless of their finishing position. Despite not taking the win, I mean, I would be quite happy with any points I can get, and managing a 10-second time penalty is not an easy task. So they're doing very well. They're working together here to keep up the pace, and that is Lally losing some positions here to Geek and Alpha. Not sure what happened. Maybe had a poor exit out of the corner.
He also has that 10-second penalty, so Lally, who had a decent race last time, having a bit more of a struggle here at Zandvoort, and losing the positions to Geek and Alpha on track as well. It's just going to make those troubles just a little bit more unfortunate for himself. But Liam now has really caught up to this top 3 battle on track, with Luke Sawyer still not able to really challenge Chris's Pillacoris yet in this race. 4 laps remain until the end of this race. Stuck in a DRS train for the battle for 3rd on track is Luke Sawyer and Liam Doherty behind Chris's Pillacoris, who is more than happy to finish out in P number 3, but potentially massively shaping up the factor of this race is not only is that 10-second penalties on Alex and Ben's going to drop them out of the 2 winning positions of this race, but potentially shaping how this battle for 3rd has been driven, as if those 2 were genuinely racing for position, maybe you see more desperation out of Luke Sawyer and Chris's Pillacoris to race for those top 2 positions.
Oh yes, I'm sure Chris's would be much more aggressive, but at the moment he really has no reason to, and trying to make a move on Ben or Alex would just be imposing risk for himself to not even finish the race potentially. So yeah, I think they're doing the right thing at the moment, but it would be very different without those 10-second time penalties.
Well, with only the 3 final laps now dawning upon us here at Zandvoort, they're going to go by very quickly with lap times, typically in the 1010s, 1011s on the dying stages of stints, typically, but it has been a long time as Liam finds his way on the inside of Luke Sawyer, catching him absolutely napping through the middle of the lap, though, with the end of sector number 1. And Liam finds his way into P number 2 really late into this race, and challenging now potentially Chris's for P number 1. These are the types of moves that you need to find to race within the pack. The desperation style moves are really the only way you can find overtakes in a DRS, and Liam finds his critical overtake on Luke. Can he replicate on Chris's Pillacoris?
Yeah, and I mean, this is actually the danger of being careful in this position for Chris is that he is limited by what the drivers ahead of him are doing. If he gets blocked out of a corner, then he may lose position, as Luke Sawyer trying to make a move on Liam, but not quite able to stick it.
Yeah, Liam getting really close to the back of Chris Pillacoris forced him to brake a little bit harder on the middle of the apex of the corner, which allowed Luke Sawyer to dive down the inside, but then his exit speed and potentially available ERS was not on his side to allow him to actually go for the overtake on Liam, which will keep the order in standing as we're on the back end of the second to final lap here at Zandvoort. The top 5 still within 2 seconds of each other on circuit, but 2 completely different battles on our hands for the second round of the BUSR series. An alternate track compared to the original. What can these drivers produce on this final lap? Can any of them make a stand for the laps to be different? It's Chris's Pillacoris. This is the furthest back we've seen against Ben Mills all race long, and Ben Mills will now have to actively race Alex Lansdale for position on circuits. He goes the long way around Alex Lansdale through turn number 1. He will get forced wide, but we'll have the inside line onto the tight corner. We'll have to drift it even a little bit as he's sliding all over the place, forcing Alex into a lockup on that rear tire, trying to get the exit speed that he can, but isn't able to find his way alongside, so we'll have to tuck back in again. But can he make anything work? As behind that, Liam is really racy and tries to switch back down to the outside line of Chris's Pillacoris, but isn't able to find anything against him. The stern defense of last year's reigning champion finding it working, but lock up again from Liam, potentially touching in the inside line, potentially picking up damage, potentially inviting Luke Sawyer to go around the outside, but you don't see moves there unless you see a twitch coming out from Liam, which we do, which will now mean he's going to have to go side by side into one of the tightest corners on the calendar, and he's not going to be able to block Luke Sawyer on the entry, but going to try and defend it like Leclerc did in the last season of F1, but potentially picking up a bit of damage, not able to find the grip to defend off Luke Sawyer as we round the final corner for the BUSR. Alex Lansdale will lead us on circuit, but Chris's Pillacoris will be back-to-back winners here in this season of BUSR. Behind that, Luke Sawyer able to make a charge back into P number 2, as New is only 1.4 seconds off of charging against Ben Mills with that 10-second penalty, and then Ben Husky across the line in P number 10 will be the first car and final car for a little while as Geek 10 seconds back, racing against Alpha, who's able to pip him across the line in a photo finish. Then we get Lally down in P number 10 with a 10-second penalty that goes unserved. That will promote Thomas into P number 10, dropping Lally out of the points. And then commiserations to Assassin J, who will cross the line 15 seconds adrift, but will only be 2 seconds after the Lally penalty. And a final round corner, the final person on track, GMT, will round out this race of BUSR at the very back of the grid and will spin across the line for the sake of it, as he does come out through. But it's Chris's Pillacoris, 2 races back to back, able to come out through as we see him in front of the stadium section crowds before he will transition towards that podium celebration. A deserving win again, but unfortunately for 2 times in a row, Luke Sawyer will find himself on that second step, but he will be surely happy to at least be able to get back past Liam, who will this time will replace Ben Mills in P number 3.
Absolutely sensational finish there at the end. We've had battles left, right, and center. It was absolutely beautiful, but Chris's takes the win. Very deserved. And yeah, as you said, Luke Sawyer, unfortunately taking second place again. And yeah, I mean, the title fight is on for Chris's here. That's 2 wins in a row now. Plenty of points. I'm sure there was a faster slap in there somewhere as well. Unfortunately, we had a lot of retirements today, so commiserations to those drivers. But yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say good comeback for Geek, and then he got pipped right at the end there. But still, very good drive from him, surviving all the chaos throughout the race. And yeah, I mean, shall we speak to the top 3 drivers?
We may as well.
They're all in, waiting for us. Shall we speak to third place first? I forgot who that was now because there was so much chaos.
Liam would be third foot.
All right. Hello, Liam, and well, congratulations on third place. Tell us how your race went.
I did something different to the others, pitting in the last one on the mediums. So I had to play catch up for the entire race, and by the time I had caught the train, I'd lost the tyre advantage from how hard I was pushing. So it was extremely difficult to overtake, and I sent it on cruises trying to get a win, and it ended up costing me P2. But I'd rather have done that than just sat behind in a train. So good result coming from, I think P6 it was.
Definitely a good result to still at least get onto the podium. Definitely benefiting from the penalties as well. However, it's very fun to see you at least go for the move and that defense. Do you think you could have done anything different to keep P2?
To be fair, me and Luke were talking about it. It was a bit argy-bargy for when I got past him, and it was a bit argy-bargy for when he got past me. So, and that's kind of what F125 is. So, no harm, no foul with that. In terms of defending that, he had the inside line, so there was really not much I could do.
Well, I mean, you clearly showed good performance today, but next week you're heading to Australia, I believe. How are you feeling about that?
Not a great track for me. So, and it's also a reverse sprint, I believe. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be carnage. So hopefully I can capitalise.
Well, best of luck next week then. And once again, congratulations on P3. And hope we'll see you again soon.
Yep. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Good luck to you.
All right. We've been asked to speak to Chris. Chris is next, as he is in a bit of a rush. So let's speak to our race winner here. Chris, hi. How was your race?
Hey, pretty eventful one, to be honest. After the safety car, I guess everyone was going for the one. I was kind of struggling because I'm on pad, and pad wear is lethal in this game. So yeah, after the stops, I was happy to just sit behind Ben and Alex. Was obviously had to get them moved down on Luke, which, I mean, I kind of found the most awkward place to do it, but turned out okay. And then, yeah, just last lap defending from Liam. That was about it, really. It was a good race, pretty fun, but also just a lot of management, like, had to lift a lot and just, yeah, it's just tiring.
As you say, it's a little bit tiring, and we do see the 2-stop coming out this time around in BUSR, but I just want to get your opinions on that. Which strategy do you really do think is the best strategy at Zandvoort?
I think probably the 1-stop, because that's what like the top tier, like the top fast guys do. I mean, if it wasn't for the safety car, I wouldn't be able to do it realistically. Like on the lap I boxed on the mediums, I was on 85 and I ended the race on 83. So if the safety car didn't come out, I would never be able to do the 1-stop. Now, if I could make the 2-stop work, I don't know. That's a different question mark. But got lucky with the safety car, I guess, because if it didn't happen at lap 1, then definitely have to 2-stop.
And next week you're heading to Australia. How are you feeling about Australia?
I really like Australia, and I'm kind of pissed that I'm forced to start at the back for the sprint because I really like qualifying there. That's probably one of my best qualifying tracks. So yeah, thank you, Josh. And but yeah, I think it's gonna be fun from starting at the back. Just mainly trying to stay alive for the sprint. Just get at least a better starting position. I'm hoping for at least top 10 in the feature race, and then I think a win would be difficult from there. But I guess I think everyone around the BUSR just has me winning every race for some reason now. So I guess I'll have to go for the win, I guess, for the next round.
Yeah, well, we won't keep you too much longer, but yeah, thank you for coming and best of luck in the next round.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Look.
Alright, so that was our race winner, and we've just got Luke to speak to now, who was in second place. Hello, Luke, and congratulations on P2. Tell us how that went.
Very good. It's good to be back on the podium again, seeing as I haven't had a podium in league racing in surprisingly a while. I'm a bit annoyed I couldn't get the win because of shocker Chris S being his usual alien self, but I'm happy with the result. It was a bit fortunate with Ben and Alex getting pens, but apart from that, I have nothing to complain about, so I'm happy.
Spent quite a while behind Ben and Alex. Did you feel like you had the pace to challenge them if they didn't have the penalties, or do you feel that you did have the pace and you just decided to sit back due to the penalties?
Yeah, there was not much point fighting them, seeing as they were both on good pace, and obviously the penalties. I reckon I could have had the pace for him, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. There wasn't really much point of me going for any moves or anything. I was always looking behind towards Chris and Liam because I knew that they were the real threats. So I reckon it was good pace. I had a good time. It's probably one of my best races in a while, so I'm happy.
Obviously, on that last lap, returning the offensive aggression back on Liam, when he overtook you, obviously getting a bit forceful, and then you just returning the favour. Do you feel like that was a little bit invited by his attempt at getting P1 against Chris's?
Not really, no. I think it was just one of those where I had a good run on him. He had some dirty air in sometime in the middle sector, and then just before the middle sector DRS zone, I managed to get a good run on him around the outside, surprisingly. So I was one of those where it was a last lap, so I had to go for it, and I left as much room as I could have. So it was one of those. I wasn't really incentivized by Liam going for Chrysis or, Chrysis is defensive or whatever. It didn't really bother me. It was just one of them where as soon as Chrysis got past me, I knew that there wasn't going to be... I'd need a miracle to get past. Yet with Liam, I know I can hang with him.
Well, you obviously had some good pace today at Zandvoort, but what do you think about next week at Australia?
Decent track for me. I've not got a brilliant track record there. It's not one of my greatest tracks, but I'm going to put in the work to make it one of my good tracks, because what's the point of league racing if you don't want to try? The sprint's going to be very interesting. So with the new format, that one's going to be something. I'm expecting quite a bit of carnage and a lot of chaos. But it's going to be fun, regardless of whether it's a good result or a crap result for anybody. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, well, we heard from Liam, I think. He was saying that he really doesn't like Australia, and then Chrysis was saying he really does like it. So we wish the best of luck to you next week, and may you come out on top of the carnage.
Yeah, thank you, lads.
Good luck to you.
Cheers.
All right, and I think that pretty much wraps up the second round of the Spring F1 Championship. Do you have any final thoughts?
Hopefully Chris's Pinnacle stops dominating the league and people can find a way to deny him the alien pace that he has on a pad.
I mean, clearly today, some people were really challenging for the win. It was just unfortunate that there were so many time penalties. So we'll have to see what comes of it next week. It does look like Liam may be quite strong at Australia, so we'll have to see if anybody's able to beat him there, but there's still plenty of races to go. This is only the second of 8 rounds, but yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. So thank you all for watching. I've been Dan, and I've been joined by Voltorium. Check out BUSR some more. We've got Assetto Corsa on Mondays, Le Mans Ultimate on Tuesdays, and of course Formula 1 on Saturdays. So stick around for some more, stay tuned, and come join our wonderful community if you want to participate. Thanks for watching. Good night.
There is no place and no moment in history where I could stand and say, British begins here, now.